what is clear is it's not an issue of just tariffs. The old regime is no more. We are in a new regime where the rules of the game are less clear.
Dr. Patrick Njoroge, the former governor of the Central Bank of Kenya, has spent 20 years at the IMF and is renowned, among other things, for overhauling Kenya's banking sector. In this episode, the inside story on one topic rattling global markets, the tariff time bomb. Dr. Njoroge lays out the catastrophic domino effect, starting with the end of key trade pacts, which could wipe out African economies and spark a new era of global instability. Governor Njoroge, the IMF has some pretty high growth predictions for Africa. Do you think that they've underestimated the impact from Trump's tariffs?
Thank you. That's really the concern we have, that the numbers that were shown for Africa did not include the impact of the most significant. So that's the elephant in the room. So for instance, the exposure to trade in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, is 60% of trade relative to GDP. So that's the ratio, as opposed to 25% in the US. And maybe 45% or so in Europe. So in some sense, it shows how vulnerable Africa is to the global growth and gyrations, should we say, in the global markets.
And in your opinion, which African nations are most impacted by the tariffs?
We should first appreciate that really trade to the US from the African nations is not that large. It's in terms of, it's like 2% of all of US trade. So it's quite small from their perspective. But in terms of the countries themselves, this may be large. So for instance, you may think of the countries that are more exposed, and from two dimensions. One is how much the tariffs that were proposed are, and the tariffs that were proposed range from 11% in the case of, for instance, Kenya and others, to 50% in the case of Lesotho. And in terms of their exposure to US trade, right? You have Lesotho has, in terms of their share of exports, are going that direction. It's large. It's like 20%. So you have Lesotho. Then you have other countries like Mauritius, Ethiopia, and Kenya. Yeah. So those are countries in terms of just the direction of trade that would be potentially hit hard. Nevertheless, the point though would be also the potential for switching trade, the direction of trade to other places, and there it depends very much on what is being exported, and that requires a lot more work to figure out whether they can actually switch and then embed themselves in another supply chain.
Now, the world was just beginning to really narrow in on the Africa growth story. How big of a setback are the tariffs? And are they a devastating blow or really just a temporary blip?
Nobody has explained how these things are going to, how long they're going to be imposed for, etc. But that said, the impact will for sure be permanent in some ways. Why? Because there is a sense of it's delaying investments. So investments in Africa and other places, and that has long-term effects. So in some sense, it's not just a price issue where the prices change and then with time, inflation stabilizes at a previous number. It is also in terms of the production capacity, and also the change. There may be changes in the industry, the composition of industry. So, for instance, you can think of a country that was exporting garment, clothing to the U.S., jeans, etc. As happened in the case of Ethiopia earlier, a few years ago, when they were moved out of the preferential trade arrangement that it had with the U.S. So, in some sense, the impact of unemployment, the impact on people's lives, that will generally be permanent in a sense. And I think that's where policymakers are concerned.
The African Growth and Opportunity Act expired in September 2025. It ended duty-free access to US markets for thousands of products over 25 years. In its place, Trump slapped African nations with tariffs of between 10 and 50%. And what about China? Can China pick up the slack, and how quickly can African nations potentially pivot away from the US to new markets, particularly China?
So one of the things that most countries have done is to begin to look at alternative markets. And that is not just in China, it is in Europe, it is in the GCC countries, the Gulf, and elsewhere, Latin America as well. So I think the idea of trying to embed themselves in a new supply chain is what they're very much trying to do. Now that is limited by the products that you have. A lot of the products that we export in Africa are primary products, right? And processed things, etc. So switching to a new supply chain will require a bit of effort, and so that is not a foregone conclusion that it will work quickly and smoothly.
And how long do you think that global reset is going to take, and what is the global economy going to look like once it settles on the new normal?
Well, I don't know. I think nobody really knows how long we'll be discussing these tariffs. But what is clear is it's not an issue of just tariffs. There are other things that have been discussed. Clearly, the old regime is no more. And we are in a new regime where, let's say, the rules of the game are less clear. You're thinking of trading arrangements. So you can think of the rules that the WTO rules, for instance. Or you can think about, for instance, the various sources, or let's say land of last resort in the economy, in the world, right? Let's say the safety nets that are there, and here I mean the international institutions that are there, the IMF, the World Bank. They too need to adjust to what we call the new normal, right? Whatever the new normal will be. All this will take time. And nobody at this moment has a sense as to how long that would take. So I think there is a lot of conversations already that are going on each one of these and other related areas. And I think it is important for us to conclude these conversations quickly. But I think effectiveness of the conversations is what I would really put a lot of weight on, so that we get effective conversations and effective outcomes that actually serve all nations, from the weakest to the strongest. And that I don't know how long it will take.
It can't all be doom and gloom, though. Are there any bright spots, do you think, personally, that support optimism in 2026 and beyond? And is there, do you think, a larger trend that is interesting, maybe, that people should be investigating?
Well, for me, the most exciting thing is, the things that excite me really, is things related to fintech, things related to technology. There's a lot of discussions as you know now, about the new technology, AI, etc. But going around the world, it's more than just AI. Technology can really be a sort of something that supports our, not just our development, but indeed our improved livelihoods. These are all great things, but at the end of the day, it is the people. And the people in Africa, youthful population, very much into IT, very much into, let's say, the digital platforms, etc. That's for forces of things. I think this is why Africa is so exciting, and with time, it will really provide or punch above its weight.
Thank you so much. A big thank you to our special guest, Dr. Patrick Njoroge, former Kenya Central Bank Governor. You've been watching I See Your Trade, brought to you by IC Markets, a leading high-performance trading provider. See you next time.